Some stories begin with a question. This one began with a simple, trembling voice in a crowded park, a question that would change the lives of everyone who heard it. It was a golden afternoon in the city's Central Park. The sun filtered through the leaves, dappling the benches and winding paths with light. The air was filled with the laughter of children, the distant bark of dogs, and the hum of city life. On a weathered bench near the duck pond, a man in a faded Marine Corps jacket sat with his German Shepherd at his feet. The dog's name was Ranger, and his eyes missed nothing. The man's name was Logan. He was in his late 30s, his hair cropped short, his posture straight but weary. He watched the world with a quiet intensity, his hands resting on his knees, his gaze distant. Ranger sat close, his body pressed against Logan's leg, his ears flicking at every sound. People passed by, some glancing at the Marine and his dog, most looking away. Some recognized the patch on Logan's sleeve, the scars on his hands, the haunted look in his eyes. Others just saw a man and his dog, alone in a crowd. At the edge of the path, a young girl hesitated. She was maybe 12, with tangled hair and a backpack slung over one shoulder. Her clothes were clean but worn, her sneakers scuffed. She clutched a book to her chest, her eyes darting from the bench to the people around her. She took a deep breath, then stepped forward. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can I sit here?" Logan looked up, surprised. Ranger's ears perked, his tail thumping once against the bench. The girl waited, her face tense, as if bracing for rejection. Logan nodded, his voice gentle. "Of course." She sat at the far end of the bench, her shoulders hunched, her eyes on the ground. For a moment, neither spoke. The world moved around them, joggers, parents with strollers, couples holding hands, but on that bench, time seemed to slow. Ranger shifted, sniffing the air, then inched closer to the girl. She looked up, startled, then smiled as the dog rested his head on her knee. "He likes you," Logan said. A hint of a smile in his voice. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She stroked Ranger's head, her hand trembling. "I like him too." A few people nearby watched, curiosity in their eyes. Some whispered, others just smiled, sensing something special was happening. Logan glanced at the girl, noticing the bruise on her wrist, the way she flinched when someone walked too close. He recognized the signs: fear, loneliness, the need for safety. He didn't ask questions. He just sat with her, letting the silence do the work. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, the crowd around them began to notice. A group of teenagers pointed, laughing. An older woman frowned, muttering about strange men and lost girls. A security guard watched from a distance, his hand on his radio. The girl shrank into herself, her hand tightening on Ranger's fur. Logan straightened, his voice calm but firm. "She's fine. She's just sitting with us." The security guard hesitated, then nodded, moving on. The girl looked at Logan, gratitude and relief in her eyes. "Thank you." Logan smiled, his heart aching. "Anytime." But as the shadows lengthened and the park began to empty, Logan sensed something was wrong. The girl's eyes darted to the path, her body tense. Ranger growled, low and soft. And in that moment, everyone in the park realized that something extraordinary was about to happen. The girl's name was Ava. She sat quietly, her hands buried in Ranger's fur, her eyes flicking nervously to the path every few seconds. Logan watched her, his instincts sharpening. He recognized the sins he'd seen them in war zones, in refugee camps, in the faces of children who had lost too much, too soon. Ava's story was written in the way she held herself, in the bruise on her wrist, in the way she flinched at sudden noises. She was running from something, or someone. Logan didn't press her for details. He knew that sometimes the hardest thing was to speak. Ranger, sensing the girl's distress, pressed closer, offering silent comfort. The dog's presence seemed to calm her, and for a moment, Ava's breathing slowed, her shoulders relaxed. Logan's own story was not so different. He had returned from deployment less than a year ago, his body whole but his mind battered by memories he couldn't escape. Ranger had been his partner overseas, a canine trained for search and rescue, bomb detection, and the most importantly, companionship. The bond between them was unbreakable, forged in the crucible of combat and loss. Since coming home, Logan had struggled to find his place. Crowds made him anxious. Loud noises sent his heart racing. And sleep was a luxury he rarely enjoyed. Ranger was his anchor, his reason to get out of bed, his reminder that there was still good in the world. As the afternoon wore on, the park grew busier. A group of teenagers played basketball nearby, their shouts echoing across the grass. Parents pushed strollers. Couples picnicked under the trees. And the city's pulse beat on. But Ava remained tense, her eyes never straying far from the path. Logan noticed a man in a dark jacket circling the park, his gaze fixed on Ava. The man's movements were deliberate, his expression hard. Logan's instincts screamed danger. He shifted on the bench, his posture casual but ready. Ranger sensed the change, his ears pricking, his body tensing. Ava noticed too. She shrank into herself, her voice barely audible. He's here. Logan didn't ask who. He didn't need to. He placed a reassuring hand on Ava's shoulder. You're safe with us. The man in the dark jacket moved closer, his eyes locked on Ava. The crowd seemed to sense the tension, a ripple of unease spreading through the park. A bystander, a woman with a stroller, paused nearby, watching the scene unfold. She glanced at Logan, her eyes questioning. Logan gave her a small nod, a silent plea for help. The woman understood. She pulled out her phone, ready to call for help if needed. The man in the jacket stopped a few feet away, his voice low and threatening. Ava, come here now. Ava froze, her hand tightening on Ranger's collar. Logan stood, his voice calm but firm. She's not going anywhere with you. The man sneered. Who are you? Her father. Logan shook his head. No, but I'm a Marine, and she's under my protection now. The man laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you can stop me? Logan's eyes were cold. Try me, Ranger growled, his body coiled and ready. The crowd began to gather, sensing that something was about to happen. Some pulled out their phones. Others whispered to each other, unsure whether to intervene or stay back. Ava looked up at Logan, fear and hope warring in her eyes. Please, don't let him. Take me. Logan knelt beside her, his voice gentle. I won't. I promise. The man in the jacket took a step forward, his fists clenched, and in that moment, the next chapter of their story began. The crowd's whispers grew louder as the man in the dark jacket squared his shoulders, his eyes never leaving Ava. Logan stood between them, his stance relaxed but unyielding. Ranger pressed against Ava's leg, his growl a low, steady warning. The man sneered, trying to intimidate Logan. You don't know what you're getting into, Marine. This is none of your business. Logan's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. You made it my business the moment you threatened her. Ava's hands trembled, but she didn't let go of Ranger's collar. The dog's presence gave her courage, and for the first time, she looked her pursuer in the eye. I'm not going with you. Not ever again. The man's face twisted in anger. You're coming home, Ava. Now. A bystander, the woman with the stroller, stepped closer. Is everything okay here? Logan nodded, his eyes never leaving the man. We're fine, ma'am. Thank you for checking. The man glanced at the growing crowd, his confidence faltering. He took a step back, but his voice was still full of menace. You think you can hide behind this guy and his mutt? You're making a big mistake. Logan took a slow breath, remembering his training. He knew that escalation could be dangerous, but he also knew that showing fear would only embolden the man. He spoke quietly, so only Ava could hear. You're brave, Ava. You don't have to run anymore. Ava nodded, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Ranger, sensing the shift, nudged Ava's hand, then looked up at Logan, waiting for a command. The man in the jacket, realizing he was losing control, tried one last time. He lunged for Ava, his hand outstretched. In a blur of motion, Logan stepped between them, blocking the man's arm with a practiced move. Ranger barked, leaping to Ava's defense, his body a wall of muscle and fur. The crowd gasped, some shouting for help, others pulling out their phones to record. The man stumbled back, his face pale. "You'll regret this, Marine." Logan's eyes were cold. "No, you will." At that moment, a police officer on bike patrol arrived, drawn by the commotion. He quickly assessed the situation, his hand on his radio. "Is there a problem here?" Logan nodded toward the man. "This man is harassing the girl. She doesn't want to go with him." The officer turned to Ava. "Is that true, Miss?" Ava nodded, her voice trembling but clear. "Yes. Please help me." The officer stepped between Ava and the man, his tone firm. "Sir, I need you to step away and show me some ID." The man hesitated, then turned and fled, disappearing into the crowd. The officer called for backup, then turned to Logan and Ava. "Are you both okay?" Logan, "No, we're fine, thanks to Ranger here." The officer smiled, kneeling to scratch Ranger's ears. "Good dog." The crowd began to disperse, some offering words of support to Ava, others shaking Logan's hand. The woman with the stroller hugged Ava, whispering, "You're safe now." Ava clung to Ranger, her tears now of relief. "Thank you, Logan." "Thank you, Ranger." Logan smiled, his heart full. "You did the hard part, Ava. You stood up for yourself." The officer took Ava's statement, promising to keep an eye out for the man in the jacket. He offered to call her family, but Ava shook her head. "I don't have anyone." "Not really." Logan's heart ached for her. "You have us now." As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Logan, Ava, and Ranger sat together on the bench, a new sense of hope settling over them. But as the city lights flickered on and the park emptied, Logan knew that this was only the beginning. There were still questions to answer, still dangers to face, still wounds to heal. And as Ranger rested his head in Ava's lap, Logan made a silent promise. He would protect her, no matter what. The park was nearly empty now, the last rays of sunlight fading behind the city skyline. Logan, Ava, and Ranger lingered on the bench, the adrenaline of the confrontation slowly giving way to exhaustion. The police officer who had intervened promised to file a report and keep an eye out for the man in the jacket, but Logan knew better than to trust that the danger was over. Ava sat quietly, her hand never leaving Ranger's fur. Logan watched her, his mind racing with questions. Who was the man? Why was Ava so afraid? And why did she have no one to call? He didn't press her. Instead, he offered her a bottle of water and waited. After a long silence, Ava spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Carl. He's my mom's boyfriend. He's not a good person. My mom left a few weeks ago. I thought he'd leave too, but he didn't. He said I had to stay, that I owed him. I ran away last night. I've been sleeping in the library, in the park. I didn't know where else to go." Logan's jaw tightened. He'd seen too many kids like Ava lost, scared, running from people who should have protected them. He felt a surge of anger, but he kept his voice gentle. "You did the right thing, Ava. You're safe now." Ava nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't want to go back. I can't." Logan put a hand on her shoulder. "You won't have to. I promise." Ranger licked Ava's hand, his eyes full of understanding. As darkness settled over the park, Logan realized they couldn't stay there. He offered to take Ava to a safe place, a shelter he knew, run by a friend from his Marine days. Ava hesitated, but the trust she felt for Logan and Ranger won out. They walked through the city together, Ranger leading the way. Logan kept a watchful eye on every shadow, every passing car. He called his friend, Sarah, who ran the shelter, and explained the situation. Sarah met them at the door, her face kind and welcoming. She hugged Ava, offering her a warm bed, a hot meal, and the promise of safety. Logan stayed until Ava was settled, then knelt beside her. "You're not alone anymore, Ava. If you need anything, you call me. Anytime." Ava hugged him, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Thank you, Logan." "Thank you, Ranger." As Logan and Ranger left the shelter, Logan felt a mix of relief and worry. He knew Carl wouldn't give up his. He also knew that Ava's story was just one of many kids lost in the cracks, forgotten by a system that was supposed to protect them. He made a silent vow to do more, to help others like Ava, to use his training and his heart to make a difference. But as he walked home through the quiet city streets, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that the danger wasn't over. He checked his phone, no new messages, no missed calls, but his instincts told him to stay alert. That night, Logan barely slept. Ranger paced the apartment, restless and uneasy. Logan cleaned his gear, checked his phone again, and waited. And as the city slept, a new threat was already taking shape, a threat that would test Logan, Ava, and Ranger in ways they could never have imagined. The next morning dawned gray and cold. Logan was up before sunrise, running Ranger through drills in the empty lot behind his apartment. The dog's focus was razor sharp, but Logan's mind was elsewhere, on Ava, on Carl, on the sense that something was about to break. He called Sarah at the shelter. "How's Ava?" Sarah's voice was warm but worried. She slept through the night, but she's scared. She keeps asking if you and Ranger are okay. Logan smiled. "Tell her we're fine, and tell her I'll check in later." He hung up, but the unease lingered. He decided to walk to the shelter, Ranger at his side. As they passed the park, Logan noticed a black sedan idling at the curb. The windows were tinted, the engine running. Ranger growled, his hackles raised. Logan memorized the license plate, his instincts screaming danger. He called Detective Alvarez, a friend from his Marine days, who now worked with the city police. "I need a favor. Run a plate for me. I think someone's looking for a girl I'm helping." Alvarez promised to check it out. "Be careful, Logan. If this is who I think it is, he's got a record." At the shelter, Ava was waiting by the window. She ran to Logan, hugging him tightly. "I was afraid you wouldn't come." Logan knelt beside her, Ranger pressing close. "I promised, didn't I?" Sarah pulled Logan aside. "Ava told me more about Carl. He's been in and out of jail. Drugs, assault, intimidation. He's dangerous, Logan." Logan nodded, his jaw tight. "He won't get to her. Not while I'm around." He spent the morning with Ava, helping her with homework, teaching her and the other kids at the shelter some basics. Ranger was a hit, letting the children pet him, his calm presence soothing their fears, but the sense of threat never left. Logan noticed a man watching the shelter from across the street, his face hidden by a hood. Ranger growled, and the man disappeared into the crowd. Logan called Alvarez again. "He's here. He's watching." Alvarez promised to send a patrol car, but Logan knew it might not be enough. That night, Logan stayed at the shelter, sleeping in a chair outside Ava's room. Ranger lay at his feet, his ears pricked, his body tense. Just after midnight, the alarm sounded. Logan was on his feet in an instant, Ranger at his side. He moved through the darkened halls, every sense alert. He found a window smashed, glass glittering on the floor. Outside, he saw Carl and another man running toward the alley. Logan gave chase, Ranger leading the way. He caught up to Carl, tackling him to the ground. The other man swung a pipe, but Ranger lunged, knocking him off his feet. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Logan pinned Carl, his voice cold. "It's over. You're not hurting her again." Carl spat, struggling. "You think you can save her? You think you're a hero?" Logan's eyes were hard. "No, but I'm not letting you win." The police arrived, arresting Carl and his accomplice. Alvarez shook Logan's hand. "You did good, Marine. You saved her." Logan nodded, relief flooding through him. He returned to the shelter, where Ava was waiting, tears in her eyes. "Is it over?" she whispered. Logan hugged her, Ranger pressing close. "Eat this. Over. You're safe now." But as dawn broke, Logan knew the fight wasn't truly finished. Ava's wounds would take time to heal, and there were others like her kids lost in the cracks, waiting for someone to notice. He made a silent vow to keep fighting, to keep helping, to keep believing in the power of courage and kindness. And as the sun rose over the city, Logan, Ava, and Ranger faced the new day, together stronger, braver, and more united than ever. The days after Carl's arrest were a blur of police interviews, paperwork, and restless nights. Ava stayed at the shelter, but the fear lingered. She jumped at every sound, flinched when strangers came too close, and clung to Ranger whenever Logan visited. The other kids at the shelter looked up to her, but Ava felt like she was living in a world made of glass. One wrong move, and everything would shatter. Logan tried to reassure her. He visited every day, bringing Ranger, helping with homework, and teaching the kids, but he could see the toll the ordeal had taken. Ava's laughter was rare, her eyes always searching for threats. Sarah, the shelter director, did her best to help. She arranged counseling for Ava, encouraged her to talk about her feelings, and made sure she was never alone. But healing was slow, and the scars ran deep. Meanwhile, Carl's friends began to make trouble. They left threatening notes at the shelter, spray-painted warnings on the walls, and followed Logan and Ava through the city. The police increased patrols, but the sense of danger never left. Logan felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He was used to danger, but this was different. These were children, people who had never asked for a fight. He reached out to his old Marine contacts, asking for advice and support. He taught the shelter staff how to secure the building, set up a neighborhood watch, and made sure everyone had a plan in case of emergency. But the stress took its toll. Logan's nightmares returned, memories of war and loss haunting his sleep. Ranger was always there, waking him from the darkness, grounding him in the present. One night, Logan woke to the sound of breaking glass. He grabbed his flashlight and sidearm, moving through the shelter with Ranger at his side. He found a window smashed, a brick lying on the floor with a note attached. "You can protect her forever." Logan's anger flared, but he kept his voice calm as he called the police. Alvarez arrived within minutes, hair-face green. "We're doing everything we can, Logan. But these guys are slippery. We need more evidence." Logan nodded, his mind racing. He knew they were running out of time. He had to find a way to end this before someone got hurt. The next day, Ava found Logan in the park, her face pale. "I'm scared, Logan. I don't want anyone else to get hurt because of me." Logan knelt beside her, Ranger pressing close. "You're not alone, Ava. We'll get through this. But you have to trust me. If you see or hear anything, tell me. No secrets." Ava nodded, her resolve returning. "Okay, I promise." But as the days passed, the tension only grew. The threats became more frequent, the danger more real. The community, once united, began to fracture, some blaming Ava for bringing trouble, others blaming the police for not doing enough. Logan felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He was used to danger, but this was different. These were civilians, people he cared about, people who had never asked for a fight. One evening, as Logan walked Ranger through the alley behind the shelter, he noticed a car idling at the curb. The windows were tinted, the engine running. Ranger growled, his hackles raised. Logan approached cautiously, memorizing the license plate. The car sped off, tires screeching. Back inside, Logan found Ava crying in her room. She wiped her eyes, trying to smile. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I'm scared all the time." Logan hugged her, his voice gentle. "You're not alone. We'll get through this. But you have to trust me. If you see or hear anything, tell me. No secrets." Ava nodded, her resolve returning. "Okay, I promise." But as the days passed, the tension only grew. The threats became more frequent, the danger more real. The community, once united, began to fracture, some blaming Ava for bringing trouble, others blaming the police for not doing enough. Logan knew they were running out of time. He had to find a way to end this before someone got hurt. And as he looked at Ranger, the dog's eyes full of trust and determination, Logan made a silent vow. He would protect Ava, Sarah, and the community, no matter what it took. But the darkness was closing in, and the final battle was yet to come. The threats against Ava and the shelter had reached a breaking point. The staff and children were on edge, and even the bravest among them jumped at every sound. But Logan refused to let fear win. He called a meeting with Sarah, the staff, and the older kids. "We can't let them scare us into silence," he said, his voice steady. "We're stronger together. We need to watch out for each other, report anything suspicious, and never let anyone be alone outside." Sarah nodded, her eyes fierce. "We'll take shifts at night. We'll keep the doors locked and the lights on." "Ava, sitting beside Ranger, looked up. I want to help. I don't want to hide anymore. Logan smiled, pride swelling in his chest. That's the spirit, Ava. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing what's right, even when jury's scared. He spent the next days training the staff and older kids in basics up, teaching them how to use their voices, how to escape holds, and how to call for help. Ranger became the shelter's unofficial mascot, his presence a comfort to everyone. Detective Alvarez increased patrols and set up a sting operation, hoping to catch Carl's friends in the act. Logan worked closely with her, sharing every detail, every suspicion. He also reached out to his Marine contacts, who offered advice and even sent a few off-duty veterans to help keep watch. The community began to rally. Neighbors brought food, offered rides, and kept an eye on the shelter. The local church organized a fundraiser to repair the broken windows and install security cameras. The city council promised to do more to protect vulnerable kids, but the Southside crew wasn't finished. One night, a group of masked men tried to break into the shelter. Logan, Ranger, and 2 Marine friends were waiting. The men were quickly subdued, the police arriving within minutes to make arrests. The next morning, the shelter was filled with relief and celebration. The kids hugged Logan and Ranger. The staff thanked the Marines, and Sarah wept tears of gratitude. Eva, her eyes shining, hugged Logan. You kept your promise. You kept us safe. Logan hugged her back, his voice thick with emotion. You kept yourself safe, Ava. You stood up. You fought back. I just helped. But the fight wasn't quite over. Carl was still out there, and Logan knew he would try one last time to get to Ava. He met with Alvarez, laying out a plan. We need to draw him out, make him think he's won. Then we end this, once and for all. Alvarez agreed, her respect for Logan clear. Let's do it. That night, Logan sat with Ava and Ranger in the park where they'd first met. The city was quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. Ava looked at Logan, her voice steady. I'm ready, whatever happens. I'm not running anymore. Logan smiled, pride and love in his eyes. Neither am I, as the stars appeared overhead. Logan knew the final showdown was coming, but for the first time, he believed they could win. The plan was simple, but dangerous. With Detective Alvarez and her team in place, Logan and Ava would walk through the park at dusk, just as they had the day they met. Ranger would be at Ava's side, Logan a few steps behind, his senses sharp, every muscle ready. Ava's heart pounded, but she held her head high. She wore a bright jacket, her hair pulled back, her eyes scanning the shadows. Ranger pressed close, his body tense but calm, his eyes never leaving her. Logan's Marine friends were hidden nearby, radios crackling softly. Alvarez waited in an unmarked car, her team ready to move at a moment's notice. As the sun dipped below the skyline, a figure emerged from the trees. Carl, his face twisted with anger and desperation. He moved quickly, his eyes locked on Ava. Ava froze, fear and resolve warring in her chest. Ranger growled, stepping between her and Carl. Carl sneered, his voice low and menacing. You thought you could hide from me. You thought this dog and this Marine could save you. Logan stepped forward, his voice calm but deadly. It's over. Carl, the police are here. You're not hurting her again. Carl Lagueth, pulling a knife from his pocket. You think I care? I've got nothing left to lose. Ava's voice was steady, her eyes locked on Carl. You're wrong. You could have chosen better. You could have let me go. Carl lunged, but Ranger was faster. The dog leaped, knocking Carl to the ground, his teeth bared, his body a shield between Ava and danger. Logan moved in, disarming Carl with a swift, practiced motion. Alvarez and her team rushed in, cuffing Carl and leading him away. The crowd that had gathered erupted in cheers, some people hugging Ava, others shaking Logan's hand. Ranger barked, his tail wagging. His job done, Ava collapsed into Logan's arms, sobbing with relief. It's over. It's really over. Logan hugged her tightly, his own tears falling. You did it, Ava. You were brave. You stood up. Alvarez smiled, her eyes shining with pride. You're a hero, Ava. Both of you. The city celebrated. The shelter hosted a block party. The street filled with music, food, and laughter. Ava danced with the other kids. Sarah grilled burgers, and Ranger basked in the attention of children, who now saw him as the bravest dog in the world. Logan stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the people he had come to love. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Peace earned through courage, sacrifice, and the unwavering bond between a Marine, a girl, and a dog. But as the night wore on, Logan knew that life would always bring new challenges. The world was full of darkness, but also of light. And as long as people stood together, as long as they refused to give in to fear, hope would always win. Ranger nudged Logan's hand, his eyes bright with love and loyalty. "We did it, buddy," Logan whispered. "We really did." But the story wasn't quite over. There was still one more chapter to write, a chapter of healing, forgiveness, and new beginnings. The days after Carl's arrest brought a gentle, lasting peace to the shelter and the neighborhood. The story of Ava, Logan, and Ranger spread quickly, first through the community, then across the city, and finally, 2 news outlets that hailed the courage of a Marine, a girl, and a remarkable German Shepherd. Ava became a symbol of hope. She was interviewed on local news, her story inspiring others to stand up for themselves and their communities. She started a support group at the shelter for kids who had experienced trauma, teaching them the self-defense moves Logan had shown her, and reminding them that they were never alone. Sarah, the shelter director, was celebrated for her leadership and compassion. The shelter received donations from across the city, enough to repair the damage, install new security systems, and expand their programs. The staff grew closer, their bond forged in the fire of crisis. Logan and Ranger were honored by the police department and the city council. Detective Alvarez presented them with medals for bravery, and the mayor declared Ranger Day in their honor. Logan, who had always shunned the spotlight, found himself at the center of a grateful community. Ranger, for his part, enjoyed the attention, especially the treats and belly rubs from children who now saw him as a real-life superhero. But the aftermath was not without challenges. Some of Carl's friends remained at large, and the threat of retaliation lingered. Logan worked closely with Alvarez and her team, sharing his knowledge and experience, helping to track down the remaining troublemakers. The neighborhood watch grew stronger, more organized, and the sense of unity that had been forged in crisis became a permanent part of the community's identity. Ava, once shy and uncertain, found her voice. She spoke at community meetings, encouraging others to look out for one another. She started taking self-defense classes, and even began training to become a volunteer with the local police. Her relationship with Sarah deepened, the 2 of them closer than ever. Logan, for the first time in years, felt at home. He continued to mentor Ava, teaching her not just how to defend herself, but how to believe in her own strength. He and Ranger became fixtures in the neighborhood, their daily walks a reminder that heroes could be found in the most unexpected places. But the story wasn't quite over. One evening, as Logan and Ranger walked past the shelter, a car slowed beside them. The window rolled down, and a familiar face appeared, one of Carl's old friends, his eyes cold and full of hate. "This isn't over, Marine," he spat. "You made a lot of enemies." Logan met his gaze, unflinching. "I've faced worse, and I'm not going anywhere." The car sped off, leaving a trail of exhaust and unease. Logan knew the fight for peace and safety was never truly finished. But he also knew he wasn't alone. He had Ranger, Ava, Sarah, and an entire community behind him. As the sun set over the city, the shelter's lights glowed warm and welcoming. Inside, laughter and music filled the air, and the promise of hope shone brighter than ever. But as Logan looked at Ranger, he knew to stay vigilant. The final test was still to come. The threat from Carl's old friends lingered like a shadow over the neighborhood. Logan knew that the fight for Ava's safety and for the community's peace wasn't truly over. He doubled down on his vigilance, working with Detective Alvarez and the neighborhood watch to keep everyone safe. Ranger was always at his side, his instincts sharper than ever. One night, as the city slept, Logan was awakened by Ranger's urgent barking. He sprang from bed, grabbing his flashlight and sidearm. Ranger led him to the back door, where Logan found a note taped to the glass. "Last chance. Leave or she pays. Logan's blood ran cold. Ekayadaba, who answered on the first ring, her voice trembling. Logan, someone's outside. Primera, erde, them. Sarah's scared. Stay inside. Lock the doors. I'm coming, Logan said, already pulling on his boots. He arrived at the shelter in minutes, Ranger leading the way. The street was eerily quiet, but Logan's instincts screamed danger. He checked the perimeter, Ranger sniffing the air, every muscle tense. Suddenly, a figure darted from the shadows, heading for the back door. Logan shouted, "Stop!" Ranger Lunget tackling the intruder to the ground. Logan pinned the man, recognizing him as one of Carly's lieutenants. Police arrived within minutes, Alvarez leading the charge. The man was arrested, and evidence found in his car linked him to a plot to kidnap Ava and Sarah. The next day, the last of Carl's crew was picked up by police, thanks to information Logan and Ranger had helped gather. The case against the gangsters was aired, surveillance footage, and the testimony of a community that refused to be intimidated. In court, Ava faced her tormentors with courage. She told her story, her voice steady, her eyes never leaving the leaders. Logan and Ranger sat in the front row, their presence a silent promise of protection. The jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. The crew's reign of terror was over. The city celebrated. The shelter hosted a block party, the street filled with music, food, and laughter. Ava and Sarah danced in the street. The kids played games, and Ranger basked in the attention of children who now saw him as the bravest dog in the world. Logan stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the people he had come to love. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years, a peace earned through courage, sacrifice, and the unwavering bond between a Marine, a girl, and a dog. But as the night wore on, Logan knew that life would always bring new challenges. The world was full of darkness, but also of light, and as long as people stood together, as long as they refused to give in to fear, hope would always win. Ranger nudged Logan's hand, his eyes bright with love and loyalty. "We did it, buddy," Logan whispered. "We really did." But the story wasn't quite over. There was still one more chapter to read, a chapter of healing, forgiveness, and new beginnings. The weeks after the trial brought a gentle, lasting peace to the shelter and the neighborhood it anchored. The Southside crew was gone, their threat finally broken. The city's headlines shifted from fear to hope, and the story of a Marine, a girl, and a German shepherd became a legend that would be told for years. Ava flourished. She was reunited with her mother, who'd returned to the city after hearing of her daughter's courage. Together, they started a support group for kids and families who had experienced trauma, teaching them not just how to defend themselves, but how to stand tall and believe in their own strength. Ava's story inspired others to speak up, to reach out, and to believe that change was possible. Sarah expanded the shelter, adding new programs for at-risk youth and survivors of violence. The staff grew closer, their bond forged in the fire of crisis. The shelter became more than a place to sleep. It became a symbol of what was possible when people refused to be afraid. Logan found a home in the city he'd once planned to leave behind. He continued to work with Detective Alvarez, helping train new officers and building bridges between the police and the community. He and Ranger visited schools, hospitals, and shelters, their story inspiring others to believe in second chances. Ranger, now a local celebrity, was never far from Logan's side. The dog's courage and loyalty had saved lives, but it was his gentle heart that won over everyone he met. Children drew pictures of him, parents thanked him, and the city honored him with a statue in the park, a tribute to the dog who had taught them all about bravery. The final test came quietly, in the form of forgiveness. One day, Ava received a letter from Carl, written from prison. He apologized for the pain he'd caused, admitting that fear and anger had ruled his life for too long. He thanked her for standing up to him, for showing him that there was another way. Ava read the letter aloud at the shelter, her voice steady. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," she said. "It's about choosing hope over hate. It's about believing that people can change." The community applauded, some wiping away tears. Logan watched from the doorway, Ranger at his side, pride and peace in his heart. He knew that the real victory wasn't just in defeating the gangsters, but in helping a city find its courage, its compassion, and its sense of family. As the sun set over the city, The shelter's lights glowed brighter than ever. Inside, laughter and music filled the air, and the promise of hope shone in every smile. Logan knelt beside Ranger, scratching his ears. "We did good, buddy. We did real good." Ranger wagged his tail, his eyes shining with love. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up for someone else. Sometimes the strongest heroes walk on four legs. And sometimes the world changes not with a fight, but with a community that refuses to give up. Because in the end, courage, kindness, and loyalty are what make us family.